in our final example problem, we have a picture here, and we want to answer a couple of questions about it. As you can see, we have it where we have 20 inches here, 16 inches here, 20 inches, 16 inches, okay? It's obviously a four-sided figure. What we want to do is answer this question. Can we assume that this is a rectangle, okay? Think about it for a moment. Okay? So can we assume this is a rectangle? Let's remember what we learned. We learned that a rectangle has to have four congruent angles. But do we know that these angles are congruent? They're not marked, so we can't do that. Therefore, we have to say that we cannot assume this is a rectangle. So, no, we cannot, because because they are not four congruent angles. Okay? All right? So just because the sides opposite each other are congruent, we cannot just say it's a rectangle. Right there tells us that it's not a rectangle. Okay? Now let's say we change up the question. Okay? Let's say, suppose the diagonals are 25.6 inches in length, and that's approximate. Okay? What can we conclude about this shape? Okay? So suppose the diagonals are 25.6 inches in length. What can we conclude about this shape? Okay? Well, first thing we should do, of course, is draw the diagonals. So we're going to draw the diagonals going from here to here and from here to here. Okay? So we're going to say that the diagonals are 25.6 inches. Okay? Now, because it's a parallelogram, we know that we're assuming it's a parallelogram. We know that when these diagonals bisect, okay, or when these diagonals meet, excuse me, they actually bisect. So we know that this part, this part, this part, and this part are all equal. All right? Well, if both diagonals are 25.6 inches, that kind of goes to show that each of the diagonals are congruent and each of these parts are congruent. So therefore, based on what we just learned, one of the things we just learned about, we learned that if the diagonals are congruent, then the rectangle is here. Okay, this is a rectangle. So, what can we conclude? We conclude that this shape is a rectangle because the diagonals are congruent. Okay? All right, so now we can say that we have four right angles and sides are congruent on opposite sides for both pairs. We can now say it's a rectangle because of the fact that the diagonals are indeed congruent. Okay?